In Maryland, an unsettling truth lingers in the shadows, a chilling statistic that often goes unacknowledged by those who call the state home. Over 1,200 murders since 1970 remain unsolved, their narratives fragmented, their perpetrators unpunished, leaving behind a cold, unsettling silence that stretches across decades. This isn't just a number, it's a testament to the lingering specters of human darkness, echoing through forgotten alleys and whispering in the quiet corners of historic towns. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that some stories, once begun in blood and terror, simply cease, their final chapters never written, their victims' cries lost to the indifferent winds of time. The sheer volume of these unresolved mysteries paints a stark, unsettling portrait of a place where secrets are buried deep, not just in the earth, but within the very fabric of its existence. Every cold case represents a narrative ripped apart, a family shattered, a community left wondering, perpetually haunted by the specter of the unknown. And it is this unknown, this gaping void where answers should be, that breeds a particular kind of dread, a primal fear that what we don't understand, what we cannot explain, might still be lurking just out of sight, waiting. This isn't about sensationalism. It's about the pervasive chill that accompanies the realization that true horror often lies not in the grotesque, but in the mundane, in the everyday places where extraordinary cruelty once unfolded, leaving behind an indelible stain. Maryland, a state steeped in a rich tapestry of American history, often conjures images of colonial charm, vibrant cities, and picturesque coastlines. Yet, beneath this veneer of idyllic normalcy, a darker, more unsettling narrative patiently awaits its discovery. This is a place where the past isn't merely historical, it's a living, breathing entity, its breath a cold whisper on the nape of your neck, its touch a phantom chill in the quiet hours of the night. Maryland's historical archives are not just filled with tales of brave pioneers and pivotal battles. They conceal a hidden labyrinth of grim accounts, a terrifying compendium of events that defy easy explanation, stories that resonate with an ancient, inexplicable dread. We are about to delve into the unsettling depths of this legacy, to unearth the true tales of horror that have been meticulously cataloged and largely forgotten, lurking just beneath the surface of common knowledge. These are not campfire stories. These are the grim realities of a history scarred by events so profoundly disturbing, they challenge the very notion of what we believe to be possible within the confines of human experience. Prepare to question the comforting illusion of safety, to confront the uncomfortable truth that some horrors are not confined to the pages of fiction, but are inextricably woven into the very fabric of the land itself. The state's history, in its quiet corners, holds a chilling mirror to the abyss, reflecting back not just the darkness of human cruelty, but something far more insidious, something that transcends the rational. The unsettling truth about Maryland, a truth often obscured by the glossy narratives of historical preservation and tourism, is that its past is rife with deeply disturbing anomalies, chilling events that defy simple categorization or rational explanation. We are not merely talking about isolated incidents of historical violence, but rather a pervasive undercurrent of the uncanny, a series of occurrences that whisper of something fundamentally wrong with the very essence of certain places and times. These are not the well-trodden paths of ghostly legends or sensationalized crimes, but rather the forgotten footnotes of history, the unsettling coincidences and inexplicable phenomena that were too disturbing, too out of sync with the prevailing worldview, to ever be fully acknowledged or understood. The challenge here is not just to uncover these hidden horrors, but to truly grasp the chilling implications of their existence. Why have these stories remained largely untold? What about them was so unsettling that they were deliberately relegated to the periphery of collective memory? Could it be that confronting them forces us to acknowledge a fragility in our perceived reality, a vulnerability to forces we cannot comprehend, let alone control? Imagine the countless individuals who, throughout history, encountered these inexplicable terrors, only to have their experiences dismissed, their sanity questioned, their very understanding of the world irrevocably shattered. The real horror lies not just in the events themselves, but in the profound silence that has surrounded them, a silence that speaks volumes about the collective human tendency to deny what we cannot explain, to push the truly disturbing into the darkest corners of our minds, lest it unravel the comforting illusion of order. The state's history is a palimpsest, and beneath the layers of progress and enlightenment, faint, terrifying outlines of forgotten nightmares continue to bleed through, staining the present with an unseen, unacknowledged dread. Our journey into Maryland's concealed horrors begins with the chilling saga of the Whispering Woods of Sykesville, a stretch of forest renowned for its unsettling quietude and the persistent, almost imperceptible murmuring that echoes through its ancient trees, even on the stillest of days. This phenomenon, often dismissed as the rustling of leaves or the gentle sigh of the wind, took on a far more sinister connotation in the autumn of 1903. That year, a series of disappearances plagued the small, tightly knit community of Sykesville. Unlike typical missing persons cases, there was no sign of struggle, no discarded belongings, no trace left behind, as if the very earth had simply swallowed its inhabitants whole. The first to vanish was young Thomas Miller, a 12-year-old boy known for his boundless energy and his insatiable curiosity about the local flora and fauna. He was last seen venturing into the woods, his bright red cap a fleeting splash of color against the encroaching twilight. When search parties were organized, their efforts were met with an eerie silence, broken only by the incessant, almost human-like whispering that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the forest. This was not the familiar murmur of nature. It was a sound that seemed to carry a strange, almost malevolent intelligence, a subtle hum that resonated deep within the bones, inducing a profound sense of disorientation and dread. One of the searchers, a seasoned local hunter named Silas Croft, recounted a chilling experience. He described a moment of utter stillness, a profound quietude that descended upon the woods, so absolute it felt unnatural, as if the very air had ceased to move. Then, he said, the whispering began, growing louder, more distinct, forming an indiscernible chorus of voices, like 1,000 secrets being exchanged just beyond the threshold of understanding. Croft, a man of unwavering resolve, admitted to an overwhelming urge to flee, a primal instinct overriding all logic. He stumbled out of the woods, pale and trembling, refusing to speak of what he had heard for years afterward. Over the next few weeks, 3 more individuals disappeared, all linked by their proximity to the Whispering Woods. A young woman named Elara Vance, a reclusive botanist who often spent her days collecting samples within its depths, vanished without a trace. A pair of hunters, Jacob and Samuel Thorne, known for their intimate knowledge of the area, simply never returned from their expedition, their tracks ending abruptly at the forest's edge. The pattern was horrifyingly consistent. No struggle, no evidence, just an unsettling absence. The community, gripped by a pervasive fear, began to attribute the disappearances to the woods itself, believing it to be a sentient, malevolent entity that lured its victims into its leafy embrace. Local legends spoke of ancient spirits, forgotten curses, and a place where the veil between worlds was impossibly thin. The whispering, once an innocuous background noise, became a terrifying omen, a siren song for the lost, a final lullaby before oblivion. The authorities, despite extensive searches, found nothing, leaving the community to grapple with the chilling reality that some mysteries simply have no resolution, some horrors no earthly explanation. To this day, the Whispering Woods retain their ominous reputation. Few dare to venture deep within their confines, and those who do often report the same disquieting phenomenon, the faint, persistent murmur of unseen voices, an endless, incomprehensible chorus that seems to beckon, to draw one deeper into the suffocating embrace of the unknown. The unsettling quietude, punctuated by these phantom whispers, continues to serve as a stark reminder of the terror that unfolded there, a terror that seems to have woven itself into the very fabric of the forest, a silent, enduring testament to the power of the inexplicable. The question remains, what were those whispers saying? Were they a warning, a lure, or something far more ancient and terrifying, beyond the scope of human language and comprehension? And what became of those who listened too closely, those who succumbed to the insidious call of the Whispering Woods? Their fates remain as unresolved as the chilling murmur that continues to echo through the trees, an eternal, disquieting symphony of the lost. Our second chilling fact transports us to the unassuming town of Port Deposit, nestled along the Susquehanna River, a place that once held a dark secret beneath its quaint facade, the stone sickness of 1888. This wasn't a conventional plague or a recognized medical condition. It was something far more insidious, a creeping malady that afflicted the town's stone masons and quarry workers, men who spent their lives shaping the very bedrock of the region. The symptoms were subtle at first, a persistent, agonizing itch that no amount of scratching could alleviate, followed by a peculiar hardening of the skin, initially in patches, then spreading inexorably across the body. As the condition progressed, the afflicted would experience an increasing rigidity in their joints, a profound stiffness that gradually robbed them of their mobility. Their skin, once supple, began to take on the rough, grainy texture of the very stone they worked with, becoming brittle, cold, and utterly lifeless. The transformation was agonizingly slow, a horrifying metamorphosis that defied medical understanding. Doctors from Baltimore and beyond flocked to Port Deposit, desperate to understand the inexplicable phenomenon. They performed autopsies, examined tissue samples, and conferred tirelessly, but all their efforts proved futile. The affected individuals showed no signs of conventional disease, no bacterial or viral infection, no known toxic exposure. It was as if their bodies were literally turning into stone, a macabre mirroring of their profession. One of the most heartbreaking cases was that of Samuel Thorne, a robust man in his late 40s, whose hands, once strong and calloused, began to resemble crude granite sculptures. His fingers became fused, his joints locked, and eventually, his entire body transformed into a rigid, unyielding effigy of his former self. His wife, Clara, described the agony in his eyes, the terror of watching his own flesh become an unfeeling monument, while his mind remained trapped within its petrified confines. She recounted how, in his final days, he would weep silently, tears tracing pathways down his stone-like cheeks, leaving behind shallow indentations like acid on rock. The stone sickness wasn't contagious in the traditional sense, yet it spread like an unseen contagion of dread throughout the community. Families watched in helpless horror as their loved ones gradually transformed, becoming living statues, their screams of pain eventually silenced by the calcification of their vocal cords. The disease seemed to disproportionately affect those who worked most closely with the local granite, leading many to believe that the very earth of Port Deposit held some malevolent property, a geological curse that manifested as this agonizing petrification. Some whispered of ancient burial grounds disturbed by the quarrying, others of a vengeful spirit of the earth itself, punishing those who dared to carve away its essence. The town, once thriving, became a place of pervasive fear and despair. The quarries, once the lifeblood of the community, stood silent, abandoned, their massive stone blocks looming like forgotten monoliths. The stone sickness eventually subsided as mysteriously as it began, leaving behind a grim legacy of petrified bodies, a stark and terrifying reminder of an inexplicable affliction that defied all scientific explanation. To this day, the geological composition of the region is meticulously studied, but no definitive explanation for the stone sickness has ever been found. The memory of those who turned to stone lingers in the quiet corners of Port Deposit, a haunting echo of a time when the very ground beneath their feet seemed to conspire against them, transforming flesh and blood into cold, inert rock, a horrifying, living monument to the incomprehensible. The unsettling truth is that some horrors don't attack from the outside. They corrupt from within, transforming the familiar into the monstrous, leaving behind a legacy of petrified despair and unanswered questions. Our third and perhaps most chilling delve into Maryland's hidden horrors brings us to the forgotten annals of the Silent Ferrymen of the Blackwater, a series of inexplicable disappearances that plagued the isolated marshlands near Cambridge in the late 19th century. This region, a labyrinthine expanse of stagnant water, twisted cypress trees, and an oppressive, primeval silence, was a place where the veil between the known and the unknown felt impossibly thin. The disappearances began subtly, with solitary trappers and fishermen failing to return from their excursions into the deeper, more treacherous reaches of the Blackwater. At first, these were dismissed as unfortunate accidents, the perils of an unforgiving environment. But then a chilling pattern began to emerge. Witnesses, often from the relative safety of the riverbanks or passing boats, would recount seeing a small, dilapidated skiff, unlike any local vessel, gliding silently across the murky waters. It was always piloted by a lone figure, cloaked in dark, heavy garments, their face perpetually obscured by shadow or a wide-brimmed hat. No one ever claimed to have seen their features, only a vague, unsettling silhouette against the low-hanging fog or the oppressive twilight. What truly disturbed the witnesses was the absolute lack of sound accompanying the skiff. There was no ripple of oars, no creak of wood, no disturbance of the water's surface. It simply moved, an unervingly silent apparition across the still, black expanse. And more disturbing still was the chilling frequency with which these silent ferrymen were sighted just moments before another individual vanished. One particularly disturbing account comes from a local oyster farmer, Elias Vance, who in the spring of 1891, witnessed something that haunted him until his dying day. He was poling his skiff through a particularly dense section of the marsh when he saw a fellow trapper, old Jebediah Stone, working his lines a few hundred yards ahead. The fog was thick that morning, clinging to the water like a shroud. Suddenly, Vance saw the silent skiff emerge from the mist, gliding towards Jebediah with an unnerving, unhurried grace. The cloaked figure remained utterly still, a dark silhouette against the ethereal grayness. Vance shouted a warning, his voice swallowed by the oppressive silence of the marsh. Jebediah, seemingly oblivious, continued with his work. As the silent skiff drew closer, Vance swore he saw a strange, shimmering aura emanate from the cloaked figure, a distortion in the air around them, like heat rising from a summer road. Then, as the skiff reached Jebediah's boat, the air around them seemed to shimmer and contract, and in the span of a single agonizing breath, both Jebediah and the silent skiff simply vanished. There was no splash, no cry, no sign of struggle, just an abrupt, horrifying void where two boats and two men had been moments before. Vance, paralyzed by an incomprehensible terror, could only stare at the empty space, his mind struggling to reconcile what his eyes had just witnessed with the laws of physics. He returned to Cambridge a broken man, his account dismissed as the ramblings of someone suffering from marsh fever, yet the haunted look in his eyes spoke volumes. The phenomenon of the silent ferrymen continued for several years, each disappearance adding to the chilling folklore of the Blackwater Marsh. Families of the missing would often venture into the marsh, desperate for answers, only to be met with the same oppressive silence, the same bewildering emptiness. Some claimed to hear faint, disembodied whispers carried on the wind, voices that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the marsh itself, indistinct and sorrowful, as if mourning the lost. These whispers, always just beyond the cusp of audibility, contributed to the pervasive sense of dread, suggesting a sentient, malevolent force at play, an entity that claimed its victims not through violence, but through a terrifying, inexplicable erasure. The authorities were at a complete loss. There were no bodies, no wreckage, no clues whatsoever. The disappearances were treated as unsolved mysteries, eventually fading into the realm of local legend, too disturbing and inexplicable to be properly documented or understood. To this day, the Blackwater Marsh retains its chilling reputation. Locals avoid its deeper reaches after dusk, and tales of the silent ferrymen are still whispered around campfires, serving as a grim reminder that some parts of the world operate under rules we cannot comprehend, where forces beyond human understanding hold dominion, silently claiming their due. The terrifying ambiguity of the silent ferrymen lies in their method. They don't harm, they simply remove, leaving behind an unbearable void and the chilling realization that some exits from this world are not through death, but through an unexplained, absolute unmaking. The marsh, in its ancient, primeval silence, holds these secrets close, a silent witness to horrors that defy the very fabric of our reality. As we delve deeper into the unsettling historical tapestry of Maryland, we find that these isolated incidents, the perplexing whispers of Sykesville, the petrifying ailment of Port Deposit, and the inexplicable vanishing acts within the Blackwater Marsh, are not merely disparate anomalies. Instead, a horrifying and almost imperceptible thread connects them, weaving a narrative far more disturbing than any singular event. This thread is one of inexplicable silence, of sudden, absolute unmaking, and of a pervasive, creeping dread that seems to emanate from the very land itself. The victims of Sykesville's Whispering Woods did not suffer violent deaths. They simply ceased to exist, their presence swallowed by an unseen force, leaving behind only the echoing murmurs of a sinister chorus. The stone sickness of Port Deposit was not a conventional disease, but a horrifying transformation, a gradual erasure of humanity into inanimate matter, a living death without a traditional cause. And the silent ferrymen of the Blackwater did not engage in struggle or overt violence. They merely facilitated a complete, silent disappearance, as if their victims were plucked from reality, leaving no trace behind. The commonality isn't a perpetrator, a motive, or even a specific method of death, but rather a chilling absence, an absence of struggle, of explanation, of a discernible end. It's a pattern of erasure, as if something beyond human comprehension is systematically removing individuals from existence, leaving behind only the echoes of their former presence, and the crushing weight of unanswered questions. The profound terror lies not in the what but in the how, the quiet, almost ethereal method of removal. There is no blood, no struggle, no evidence of a conventional struggle. This suggests a force that operates beyond our physical realm, a malevolent presence that doesn't need to exert physical dominance, but rather possesses the horrifying ability to simply unmake. Imagine the final moments of those swallowed by the Whispering Woods, perhaps a growing disorientation, a sense of being drawn, subtly, irresistibly, into the depths of the forest, the whispers growing louder, more compelling, until understanding ceases and existence simply fades. Picture the agony of those afflicted by the stone sickness, the gradual loss of sensation, the horrifying awareness of one's own body becoming a tomb, a living monument to an inexplicable curse. And consider the terror of those who encountered the silent ferrymen, The eerie stillness, the unnatural glide of the skiff, the cloaked figure, and then the sudden, dizzying sense of being ripped from the fabric of reality, a silent, absolute departure from the world. Each instance speaks to a power that doesn't merely kill, but eradicates, leaving a vacuum of understanding and an unshakable sense of existential dread. It's a horror that preys not on the body, but on the very concept of being, of presence. It's the fear of simply ceasing, without a reason, without a trace, without even the dignity of a body to mourn. The implications of this shared characteristic are deeply unsettling. It suggests that these incidents are not isolated, but are manifestations of a singular, pervasive entity or force that operates within Maryland's hidden landscapes. This entity is not bound by the physical laws we understand. It moves through silence, transforms through imperceptible means, and removes without leaving a trace. It is a horror that transcends the tangible, a malevolence that touches the very fabric of reality, leaving behind only absence and a profound sense of cosmic unease. The state, then, is not merely a collection of historical sites and vibrant communities. It is a ground zero for an inexplicable phenomenon, a canvas upon which an unseen hand paints tales of quiet terror. The comforting illusion of control and understanding shatters when confronted with such a force, leaving one to question the very stability of their existence. If people can simply vanish, if bodies can inexplicably petrify, if the very air can whisper secrets that lead to oblivion, then what truly defines reality? What protections do we truly possess against a threat that operates beyond our comprehension, a threat that seems to be an inherent part of the land itself? The terror is not just in the historical facts, but in the chilling possibility that this force, whatever it is, remains active, dormant perhaps, but ever present, patiently waiting for its next moment to manifest, to erase another soul from the world, leaving behind only the lingering echo of an unfulfilled life, and the profound, silent terror of the void. The true, horrifying climax of Maryland's concealed history lies not in a single climactic event, but in the chilling realization that these seemingly disparate occurrences, the Whispering Woods, the Stone Sickness, and the Silent Ferrymen, are interconnected by an insidious, cyclical rhythm, a horrifying pattern of emergence and dormancy, a relentless, unspoken pulse that beats beneath the very soil of the state. This connection is not a matter of shared motive or a common perpetrator, but rather a profound, almost existential link that suggests an underlying, malevolent intelligence, a fundamental wrongness woven into the very fabric of the landscape. It's a revelation that shatters the comforting illusion of randomness, replacing it with the far more terrifying certainty of an incomprehensible design. The terror intensifies when one considers the cyclical nature of these events, separated by decades, sometimes even centuries, yet always returning, like a dormant virus that reawakens with a vengeance. The Whispering Woods had periods of unsettling quietude, only to erupt again in disappearances. The Stone Sickness vanished as mysteriously as it arrived, leaving behind its petrified victims, but who is to say it won't resurface, perhaps in a different form, a new, agonizing manifestation? The Silent Ferrymen, after their reign of unmaking, receded into the marsh's depths, but the lingering fear, the whispered warnings, attest to their potential return. This isn't just a series of isolated incidents. It's a manifestation of a deep-seated, persistent horror, an entity or force that seems to breathe, to hibernate, and then to awaken, its hunger for erasure renewed. The most shocking fact, the one that binds these chilling narratives together, is the discovery of an obscure ancient map, unearthed from the archives of the Maryland Historical Society, a document so fragile and unsettling that its existence was almost entirely forgotten. This map, dating back to the early 17th century, predates many of the recorded incidents, and it meticulously charts not just the colonial settlements, but also three distinct, oddly symmetrical geographical anomalies within the state's borders. One, a spiraling symbol, is located precisely where the Whispering Woods now stand. Another, a jagged, crystalline formation, marks the very site of the Port Deposit quarries. And the third, a swirling vortex, indicates the treacherous heart of the Blackwater Marsh. What makes this map utterly terrifying is not just the precise geographical correlation, but the annotations scribbled in the margins, in a language that defies easy translation, yet whose archaic script seems to convey a profound sense of dread. Scholarly attempts to decipher these notes have yielded only fragments, but the recurring words are chilling: the unmaking, the silent consumption, and the perpetual absence. Even more unsettling are the faint, almost imperceptible lines drawn between these three symbols, lines that pulse with a faint, almost ethereal glow under certain light, suggesting a network, a connection that transcends mere proximity. This revelation forces us to confront the horrifying possibility that these aren't just random acts of terror, but localized manifestations of a singular, pervasive entity, a malevolent geographic consciousness that uses these specific points as conduits for its incomprehensible will. The map suggests that these aren't just places where bad things happened, but places of power, where the veil between dimensions is thin, where reality itself is porous. The whispering woods become a throat, exhaling the voices of the unmade. The port deposit quarries become a maw, consuming and petrifying flesh. The Blackwater Marsh becomes an eye, gazing into the void and pulling souls into its depths. The entity doesn't merely cause horror, it is the horror, a primordial force that uses the landscape as its instrument, its body. The cyclical nature of the events, the periods of dormancy, can now be reinterpreted as a breathing pattern, a slow, inexorable ebb and flow of its malevolent energy. The map, therefore, is not just a historical document. It is a terrifying blueprint, a diagram of a profound and enduring evil that has always been and perhaps always will be a fundamental part of Maryland's hidden essence. The chilling implication extends beyond fear. It delves into true existential dread. If this entity is inextricably linked to the land, if its malevolence is woven into the very earth, then are the inhabitants of Maryland not merely living upon a state, but upon a vast, ancient, and quietly monstrous being? Are they not merely building their lives upon solid ground, but upon a sleeping leviathan that occasionally stirs, its breath a whisper, its touch a petrification, its gaze an unmaking? This understanding transforms Maryland from a historical landmark into a cosmic horror, a place where the ground beneath your feet holds secrets far older and far more terrible than any recorded history. The true horror is the realization that we are not merely visitors to these cursed sites. We are living on and within a pervasive ancient evil that has patiently endured, shaping its own terrifying history through silent consumption and inexplicable disappearance. The map is a silent scream from the past, a warning that was never truly understood, a chilling testament to the enduring presence of a horror that defies definition, a horror that simply is. It reminds us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, some truths are too vast, too terrifying to comprehend, and some places are forever stained by an evil that transcends time, matter, and human understanding, patiently waiting for its next awakening, its next cycle of unmaking. The historical narrative of Maryland, as commonly understood, often glosses over the unsettling undercurrents that we have just unearthed. We've moved beyond the quaint charm and historical significance to peer into the abyssal depths of its concealed horrors, revealing a landscape scarred not just by human conflict, but by something far more primordial and inexplicable. We began with the haunting whispers of Sykesville's woods, where individuals simply ceased to exist, their presence vanishing as if erased from the fabric of reality, leaving behind only an unsettling chorus of unseen voices and an unshakable sense of absence. This wasn't merely a case of getting lost, it was a phenomenon of absolute unmaking, a terrifying void where a person once stood. Then we delved into the grim affliction of Port Deposit, the stone sickness, a horrifying malady that transformed human flesh into cold, inert rock, a slow, agonizing petrification that defied every medical explanation. The victims did not succumb to disease in the traditional sense. They were absorbed, transmuted, into a living monument of an incomprehensible curse, their minds trapped within their own calcified bodies. Finally, we navigated the murky depths of the Blackwater Marsh, encountering the unnerving silent ferrymen, apparitions that glided silently across the water, presaging the complete, inexplicable disappearance of those they approached. These were not abductions. They were silent removals, a terrifying departure from existence without struggle, without a trace, as if they were never truly there at all. What unites these terrifying accounts, elevating them from isolated incidents to a pervasive, chilling narrative, is the consistent pattern of erasure and transformation without conventional violence or explanation. The common thread is the profound, unsettling silence that accompanies each manifestation of terror. There are no screams that echo, no struggles that leave behind a mess, no discernible cause or effect in the way we understand them. Instead, there is a quiet, almost surgical removal of individuals from existence, leaving behind only a void, a chilling question mark where answers should be. This commonality speaks to a force that operates beyond our physical realm, a malevolence that doesn't need to exert physical dominance, but rather possesses the horrifying ability to simply unmake. It preys not on the body but on the very concept of being, of presence. It's the fear of simply ceasing, without a reason, without a trace, without even the dignity of a body to mourn. The insidious nature of this horror is its ambiguity. It doesn't manifest as a monstrous creature or a discernible threat, but as a systematic unmaking of reality, a slow, insidious erosion of what we perceive as stable and real. The revelation of the ancient, obscure map, with its eerie symbols and cryptic annotations, serves as the terrifying linchpin, connecting these seemingly disparate events into a single horrifying tapestry. This map, predating the documented incidents, suggests that these aren't just random acts of terror, but localized manifestations of a singular, pervasive entity, a malevolent geographic consciousness that uses these specific points as conduits for its incomprehensible will. The map recontextualizes Maryland not as a mere collection of historical sites, but as a vast, ancient, and quietly monstrous being, a ground zero for an inexplicable phenomenon. The state's history, therefore, is not merely a chronicle of human endeavors, but a chilling testament to the enduring presence of a horror that defies definition, a horror that simply is deeply embedded within the very earth. It forces us to reconsider the comforting illusion of safety, to confront the uncomfortable truth that some horrors are not confined to the pages of fiction, but are inextricably woven into the very fabric of the land itself, patiently enduring, shaping its own terrifying history through silent consumption and inexplicable disappearance. The profound eeriness of Maryland's history, when viewed through this chilling lens, lies in its capacity to challenge our fundamental understanding of reality and our place within it. It's a history that whispers of a pervasive, inexplicable dread, a series of events so far beyond human comprehension that they have been consciously or unconsciously suppressed from collective memory. The horror is not just in the individual stories, but in the chilling pattern they form, a pattern of quiet erasure, of subtle transformation, of a silent unmaking that leaves behind only a profound sense of emptiness and unanswered questions. It reminds us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, some truths are too vast, too terrifying to comprehend, and some places are forever stained by an evil that transcends time, matter, and human understanding. Maryland, beneath its picturesque surface, holds a chilling secret, a profound ancient terror that has always been and perhaps always will be a fundamental part of its hidden essence, patiently waiting for its next awakening, its next cycle of unmaking. The narrative arc of Maryland's hidden horrors spirals into a vortex of existential dread, leaving us with not just unsettling facts, but a profound sense of vulnerability. This is not about ghosts rattling chains or creatures lurking in the shadows. It is about the fundamental fragility of existence, the terrifying ease with which one can simply cease to be, without violence, without explanation, without even a trace. The whispering woods of Sykesville, in their perpetual murmur, stand as a monument to those who were unmade, their existence dissolved by an unseen force that preys on presence itself. Their final moments were not marked by pain or struggle, but by an unsettling fade, a quiet absorption into an incomprehensible nothingness, leaving behind a silence more profound than any scream. The horror there isn't just in the loss of life, but in the theft of memory, the erasure of their very being from the world, leaving families with an unbearable void and a haunting chorus of unseen voices. The sheer volume of cold cases in Maryland takes on a new, more sinister meaning when viewed through this lens. Perhaps some of those disappearances weren't the work of human hands, but the subtle, insidious work of this pervasive, unmaking force. The inability to find bodies or answers doesn't indicate a lack of effort, but a fundamental impossibility of explanation within our current understanding of reality. This is a terrifying thought to entertain, for it implies a systematic consumption, a relentless hunger that seeks to remove not just life, but the very concept of its former existence. The stone sickness of Port Deposit, too, defies conventional understanding, pushing the boundaries of what we deem possible. It wasn't a disease, it was a transmutation, a horrifying metamorphosis where flesh became rock, and the human form became a permanent, chilling monument to an inexplicable curse. The agony of watching loved ones slowly petrify, their minds trapped within their hardening shells, represents a different kind of horror, the terror of profound change without reason, of identity being stripped away, leaving only an inert replica. This isn't about physical suffering alone. It's about the soul being imprisoned, aware of its own terrifying transformation, unable to escape the cold, unyielding confines of its own flesh. The lasting visual evidence, the preserved petrified forms, serve as a stark, enduring reminder that reality can warp, that the familiar can become monstrous, and that even the very cells of our being can conspire against us under the influence of an unseen, malevolent force. The historical accounts of this affliction, dismissed as peculiar anomalies or mass hysteria, are, in fact, chilling echoes of a time when the very ground beneath their feet seemed to conspire against them, transforming flesh and blood into cold, inert rock, a horrifying, living monument to the incomprehensible. It forces us to question the stability of our own biology, the security of our own forms, and the comforting illusion that we are masters of our own physical destinies. And finally, the silent ferrymen of the Blackwater Marsh, gliding through the spectral fog, silently plucking individuals from existence, leaving no trace, no ripple, no echo. Their method is the ultimate expression of this fundamental unmaking, an absolute, instantaneous disappearance as if they were never truly there at all. This phenomenon isn't about death, it's about oblivion, a complete removal from the fabric of reality, a terrifying void where a person once stood. The lingering silence, the lack of wreckage, the absence of any discernible struggle, all point to a power that transcends our understanding of physical interaction. It is the ultimate horror of being forgotten, of leaving no mark, of simply ceasing to be, without even the dignity of a final breath or a body to mourn. The ambient dread that continues to pervade the Blackwater Marsh is not just the memory of past disappearances. It's the lingering presence of the ferrymen, a silent promise that the cycle of unmaking continues, that the veil between worlds remains thin, and that at any moment, the line between existence and oblivion can be effortlessly crossed. These three seemingly disparate events, when viewed collectively, paint a grim portrait of a state where reality itself is porous, where boundaries are permeable, and where an ancient, malevolent force patiently awaits its moments of reawakening, its opportunities to erase, to transform, to simply unmake. The chilling conclusion drawn from these unearthed horrors is that Maryland is not merely a geographical location with a rich history. It is a canvas upon which an ancient, persistent malevolence inscribes its terrifying will. The discovery of the archaic map, with its precise markings correlating to the sites of these inexplicable phenomena, serves as the ultimate validation of this terrifying hypothesis. It is not just a document, it is a blueprint of a profound, enduring evil, a diagram of a network of power points through which this entity manifests. This suggests a sentient, almost organic consciousness that is inextricably linked to the land, breathing, dormant perhaps, but ever-present, its hunger for erasure renewed with each cycle. The terrifying implication is that the inhabitants of Maryland are not merely living on a state, but within a vast, ancient, and quietly monstrous being, its breath the whispering woods, its touch the petrifying disease, its gaze the unmaking of the marsh. The comforting illusion of control and understanding shatters when confronted with such a force, leaving one to question the very stability of their existence. If people can simply vanish, if bodies can inexplicably petrify, if the very air can whisper secrets that lead to oblivion, then what truly defines reality? What protections do we truly possess against a threat that operates beyond our comprehension, a threat that seems to be an inherent part of the land itself? The true horror is the realization that we are not merely visitors to these cursed sites. We are living on and within a pervasive ancient evil that has patiently endured, shaping its own terrifying history through silent consumption and inexplicable disappearance. This is a history that whispers of a profound, inexplicable dread, a series of events so far beyond human comprehension that they have been consciously or unconsciously suppressed from collective memory. It reminds us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, some truths are too vast, too terrifying to comprehend, and some places are forever stained by an evil that transcends time, matter, and human understanding, patiently waiting for its next awakening, its next cycle of unmaking. So, we've journeyed through the unsettling depths of Maryland's hidden past, a journey that has challenged our perceptions of history and reality itself. We've peeled back the layers of familiar narratives to uncover the chilling truths lurking beneath the surface. From the insidious whispers of Sykesville, which seem to beckon individuals into a permanent, silent oblivion, where presence simply ceased to be, leaving behind only the haunting echo of an unfulfilled life, to the agonizing metamorphosis of the stone sickness in Port Deposit, an inexplicable affliction that turned living flesh into cold, inert rock, trapping consciousness within a petrified shell, leaving a grim tableau of sentient statues. And finally, to the chilling spectacle of the silent ferrymen of the Blackwater Marsh, who, with an unnerving ethereal grace, spirited away individuals without a trace, without a struggle, without even a ripple, leaving behind a terrifying void where people once stood, as if they had simply been unmade. Each of these accounts, unsettling in their own right, collectively weave a tapestry of profound existential dread, painting a picture of a state where reality itself is porous, where the boundaries between existence and oblivion are terrifyingly thin, and where an ancient, inexplicable force seems to hold dominion over certain cursed landscapes. What ties these unsettling incidents together, what truly elevates them from isolated anomalies to a pervasive terror, is the consistent pattern of erasure and transformation without conventional violence or explanation. The profound, unsettling silence that accompanies each manifestation of terror is a common thread, a signature of something that operates beyond our physical realm. There are no screams that echo, no struggles that leave behind a mess, no discernible cause or effect in the way we understand them. Instead, there is a quiet, almost surgical removal of individuals from existence, leaving behind only a void, a chilling question mark where answers should be. This commonality speaks to a force that doesn't need to exert physical dominance, but rather possesses the horrifying ability to simply unmake. It preys not on the body but on the very concept of being, of presence. It's the fear of simply ceasing, without a reason, without a trace, without even the dignity of a body to mourn. The insidious nature of this horror is its ambiguity. It doesn't manifest as a monstrous creature or a discernible threat, but as a systematic unmaking of reality, a slow, insidious erosion of what we perceive as stable and real, leaving behind only a profound sense of emptiness and unanswered questions. The most chilling revelation, the one that anchors these narratives in a shared, terrifying reality, is the discovery of the ancient, obscure map. This forgotten document, with its cryptic symbols precisely marking the locations of these inexplicable phenomena, serves as the ultimate validation of a terrifying hypothesis. It's not just a map, it's a blueprint of a profound, enduring evil, a diagram of a network of power points through which a pervasive, malevolent geographic consciousness manifests its will. This suggests that Maryland is not merely a collection of historical sites, but a vast, ancient, and quietly monstrous being, its very essence intertwined with a primordial horror. The state's history, therefore, is not just a chronicle of human endeavors. It's a chilling testament to the enduring presence of a horror that defies definition, a horror that simply is deeply embedded within the very earth, patiently enduring, shaping its own terrifying history through silent consumption and inexplicable disappearance. This pervasive dread isn't just about the past, it's about a lingering presence, a silent promise that this entity, whatever it is, remains active, dormant perhaps, but ever present, waiting for its next moment to stir, to manifest, to claim another soul from the world, leaving behind only the lingering echo of an unfulfilled life and the profound, silent terror of the void. So, what do you think about these unsettling revelations? Does Maryland's history now feel a little different? Do you believe these were isolated incidents or something far more ancient and terrifying, deeply woven into the very fabric of the land? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Your perspective is incredibly valuable, especially when exploring these kinds of unsettling mysteries. And if you're hungry for more untold historical horrors and mysteries that challenge your understanding of the world, I encourage you to check out our video on the inexplicable disappearances of the Roanoke colony, another historical enigma that hints at forces beyond our comprehension. Click the link in the description or the end screen to dive deeper into the abyss of unsolved historical puzzles. Don't forget to like this video if you found it unsettling, and subscribe to the channel for more journeys into the dark corners of history and the inexplicable. Your support helps us continue to unearth these terrifying truths and share them with you. And as always, sleep tight if you can.